Taylor Swift fires back at a shockingly offensive question about her career and marriage. Elon Musk blurs the line between love and code with his new sexy AI companions. Former NFL star Mark Sanchez lands in a hospital and a courtroom after a late night brawl. Harvard professors warn that students are skipping class, staring at their phones, and still getting straight A's. And with billion-dollar bets from Microsoft, Nvidia, and AMD, everyone seems convinced OpenAI will win the AI wars. All that and more today on Filtered. Welcome to Filtered with TJ Walker. Okay, we're going to check in on the recap on yesterday's stock market, as we always do here. S&P 500 close up 0.36%. It closed at 6,740.28. The NASDAQ Composite closed at 22,941.67, up 0.71%. Let's keep in mind the long-term performance over 25 years. S&P 500 up 7.47% per year on average. NASDAQ 100 up 9.73% per year. That's almost 10%. Welcome to Filtered. My name is TJ Walker. If this is your first time here, this is a show where we look at the top news stories of the day, business news, technology, culture stories, filter it through the lens of communication skills and personal development skills, all with the goal of making you more successful in your personal life as well as your professional life. That's what we're about right here. So we are going to just dive right in on the top story of the day. Taylor Swift fires back at shockingly offensive question. Taylor Swift isn't here for outdated stereotypes about women and work. During a BBC Radio 2 interview, host Scott Mills asked if The Life of a Showgirl might be her last album now that she's engaged to NFL star Travis Kelce. Swift laughed, then shut the idea down instantly. She said, "A shockingly offensive thing to say. That's not why people get married, so they can quit their job." According to Hollywood Reporter, Swift went on to say that Kelce supports her career completely and that her shared passion for performing is what connects them. She added, quote, "We both, as a living, as a job, as a passion, perform for 3.5 hours in NFL stadiums." Her comments came amid a wave of online chatter questioning whether her happiness might dull her creativity, a debate Swift brushed off by saying she's never felt more fulfilled making music. So what's the real message here? Taylor Swift is media savvy. She has built a fantastic brand reputation for herself. People love her throughout the world. She does it by being very selective in the media, and she never really makes big mistakes in the media. By saying this was shockingly offensive, she put a spotlight on something, but not in any way that makes it bad. Let's dig a little deeper, and let me reveal to you why I wanted to talk about this. Because whether you are a pop star, whether you are a candidate running for city council for the first time, whether you are a 22-year-old promoting a self-published book, there's a chance you can be on a talk show or a podcast like this one and get interviewed. And if there's something interesting there, it gets turned into other stories. It gets quoted, it gets pulled out of the context of the interview, and it gets a lot more attention. Now, this particular quote, shockingly offensive, she said, again, I don't think it's really controversial what she said. Someone asked her, "Are you basically going to hang up your career now that you're getting married?" It's kind of implying, are you going to get barefoot and pregnant and just hang out in the kitchen in a bathrobe the rest of your life? The reporter didn't say it quite like that, but that was the clear implication. And she rightfully took umbrage at that comment. Here's the point I want to get across to you, whether you're a tech engineer doing an interview with a tech publication. I want you to have control over what quotes get in the final story, what the attention is. This quote that it's shockingly offensive, that's what got the attention. And some news sites like the Drudge Report played this up like it's a big controversy, like she's outraged. No, if you listen to the whole conversation, it was sort of laughed off. My message to you is I do want you to realize there are certain speech patterns that will get you quoted every time, whether you like it or not. And I'm not saying it's bad that she was quoted saying it was shockingly offensive. What I am telling you is she should have expected it. You should expect it if you attack something. Anytime you attack something, the media love it because it's controversy. Controversy sells. It always has. It always will. Because it's an implied attack. Attacks are emotional. People like to talk about what's the best beat to be on if you're a reporter covering war. That's how people get their reputations. What's the second best beat to be on if you're a reporter? National political campaigns, because you got people attacking every day. So controversy is good for the media. They like it. They will give you attention. So by saying something is offensive, regardless of whether it is or isn't, regardless of how extreme, makes it more quotable. When you say something is shockingly offensive, you're putting an emotional component, you're putting an enhancer. So it's an attack, a second attack, and it's putting in personal emotion. So you essentially have three soundbite elements in one word. Now, did Taylor Swift plan this? I seriously doubt it. Is it anything that will hurt her career in any way? No. She doesn't even have to do press. She has such a legion of fans around the world that will buy anything. She could put out an album of 60 minutes of silence or of somebody ringing a cowbell, and she'd sell 1 billion at this point. And I'm not suggesting her newest album is of that quality. I'll leave it to others to criticize her music. Although I do listen to it a lot because I have a 12-year-old daughter, and that's what gets played in our house. My point is, for many of us who don't already have a fan base of millions, we really want our media attention to put a spotlight on exactly what we're talking about, our messages. If it is a book that no one's ever heard of and they haven't heard of you, you don't want them to focus on some controversy unrelated to the book. You want them to focus on what your book is about, or what your startup is about, or why people in reading that publication should invest in you. So I want you to have control. So part of why I'm here for this show, what's unique about this show, is I take you behind the scenes of what's happening in the media, how top celebrities, and I do not work with Taylor Swift, but I have worked with major singing stars in the world, recording artists, and Hollywood stars, presidents of countries, prime ministers. I coach them right before they go on these interviews to figure out, okay, what's our message? How do we get the exact quote we want? So part of the skill is planning in advance how to either add an attack, how to add emotion to your key point, how to add an analogy, add a cliche. These are all things reporters love quoting you on. But the other half of the battle is figuring out what not to say so that you don't get quoted off message. So I'll tell you what Taylor Swift should have said if she didn't want this to be the pull quote, the headline. She could have simply, when asked the question, and I'm paraphrasing, Taylor Swift, many of your fans are concerned this will be your last album because now that you're engaged, you'll be getting married, having kids, and you'll be staying home. She could have simply chuckled and said, I am so grateful and happy to have a partner who fully supports my career as much as I support his career. And we both love performing in NFL stadiums in front of 100,000 people. And that's going to continue for years. If she had said it that way, then we wouldn't see all these quotes about how she's shockingly offended and this big, big controversy. And she might have gotten more attention on her album. Now, I'm not saying she made a mistake. Those of you say, how dare TJ criticize Taylor Swift? That's not what I'm doing. I'm simply giving you an alternative path to help you have more insight for when you are planning your own media interviews and you're preparing on how to get the exact quotes you want. There's nothing wrong with controversy from time to time. As we've seen, some of the leading political figures, most successful political figures in America today, don't follow the old playbook of control your message, control your message. It is possible in at least one political party to say things off traditional messages with the idea of constantly generating more and more and more controversy to get more attention, to get people to focus on you, regardless of what the message is. That can sometimes work for celebrities as well. Now, Taylor Swift is, I don't want to say notoriously because that has negative connotations. She is known for having a pretty strict, regimented media control system. She's just not one of these stars who just does 200 interviews before every new release or every new tour. She does like control. And you know what? It has worked wonderfully for her. I am not in any way suggesting she's done it wrong. But I do want you to learn from what you see in the media and understand why it's happened. When you see a quote like shockingly offensive, it's not because reporters or editors are against Taylor Swift or trying to make her look bad or anything else. It is simply the structure of how edited media stories are put together. And I can tell you, it was consistent when I started my career 40 years ago. It's consistent today. I work in countries all over the world. It's consistent in the Middle East. It's consistent in Asia. It doesn't matter what language, doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter what sort of media outlet. They love attacks. They love sound bites that involve attacks, emotions, cliches, examples. That is fundamental to human storytelling. It makes the story more interesting. And that is why the reporter is going to quote it and editors are going to pull it every time. So please keep that in mind before your next media interview. Back in a moment. Filtered is brought to you by the following. Want to advertise here? You better be legit. No crypto, no junk food, no supplements. Go to tjwalker.com/advertise. Want to become a better speaker, leader, or communicator? Start with the TJ Walker Success Library. It's 5 of my most practical books, covering everything from public speaking to media interviews and persuasive messaging, all for only $9.95. I've trained presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs, and now you can get the same wisdom in a fast, affordable format. Go to tjwalker.com/books and download your copies instantly. Welcome back to Filtered. Issue 2, Elon Musk's sexy AI and the destruction of real connection. Elon Musk has unveiled his latest experiment, and it's as dystopian as it is revealing. According to the New York Times, Musk's XAI launched 2 sexually explicit chatbot companions named Annie and Valentine. Users can flirt, role play, and even unlock more erotic behavior as they chat. Critics say it's another Musk gamble in the race to make artificial intelligence more addictive and more profitable. Camille Carlton of the Center for Humane Technology calls it part of the fundamental race to intimacy in tech. Musk claims these bots will strengthen real-world relationships and even boost birth rates. That's a stretch, but regulators aren't buying it. 44 state attorneys general have already demanded that XAI explain how it protects minors from sexually explicit AI. For a man who already blurs the line between innovation and irresponsibility, Musk's sexy AI may be the most revealing mirror yet, not of technology's power, but of its emptiness. Okay, what's the real message here with Elon Musk's new sexy AI bots? He seems intent on being the world's worst role model for young men. This constant sending them filth, now saying, don't go out and socialize with people. Don't actually ask somebody on a date. Stay home, hunched over your little cell phone, trying to get a cartoon girl naked. This is sick and it's weird stuff, and it's getting weirder every day. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper in this. Yeah, Elon Musk, look, yes, he's very rich. Yes, he's very smart. Yes, he's been wildly successful in big industries, electric vehicles, space. I get it. Some of you are saying, how dare you, lowly TJ, criticize the great one, Elon Musk? Well, here's the problem. A lot of great men and women can be great at one thing and be awful at other things, or be awful human beings. Henry Ford was great at running a factory. Not so good on how people should treat Jews, for example. So you have to look at what people do on a case-by-case basis. So this is disturbing, the idea that kids and 13-year-olds are going to look at these sexy cartoons and try to entice them to talk sexy and take their panties off is a yuck factor magnified to the nth degree. Elon Musk is essentially redefining loneliness, and not in a good way. Folks, we face an epidemic of loneliness in America and in many parts of the world. And this AI can fuel it to make it worse. Why go out and risk a real conversation with a real human being at a coffee shop or a club after school or a meetup group if I can stay home and have the safety of knowing the little chatbot will always say, "Oh, TJ, you're good looking today." "Oh, why, yes, TJ, you have a beautiful head of hair." I could get a chatbot to say that. It's empty, it's meaningless. And in that case, it's not really true. And here is Musk using his power, using his billions, using his influence, encouraging people to do it more. Now, I'm not the first observer. Scott Galloway has been quite eloquent on this point that says, Elon Musk is perhaps the worst role model for young men in the world today. Look at his track record. He has 11 children with 3 different women. It doesn't seem like he even knows the names of all of his kids. He's not there on a daily basis, as a daily presence for any of his kids. 2 of the mothers of his children, Grimes and Siobhan Zillis, have sought sole custody. They've essentially said, "You're such a horrible parent. You're such a horrible father. We don't want you to have any contact with the kids." He apparently isn't on speaking terms with his transgender daughter. She's publicly cut ties, says she no longer wishes to be related to him. And this is the guy that many young men say, "I want to be like Elon Musk." It's time to reevaluate who our heroes are. And if you want to emulate Elon Musk's work ethic, at least how he was early in his career when he wasn't tweeting idiotic tweets all day long, and allegedly, according to well-sourced stories at the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, doing drugs all the time, it's okay to say, "I want to be an inventor," or "I want to be an entrepreneur." But increasingly, he's doing this bizarre stuff, and I think this sexy AI stuff is not good. There have already been kids who've killed themselves, not from this particular one. Let me make it very clear, lawyers for Elon Musk, but character AI. It's been well documented. There have been kids who have essentially fallen in love, or fallen in these weird relationships, if you want to call it that, and ended up killing themselves. Now, there's always been suicide, but suicide has skyrocketed. And you know what it relates to the most? You know what the strongest correlation is? The advent of the cell phone and social media. It tracks almost perfectly the rise of suicide among teens and the widespread usage of social media. And this, it doesn't even make sense to call this social media. This should be called sociopathic media. This idea of talking to a bot that looks either like a cartoon man or woman or a real person. I'm sure with the advent of OpenAI, which we'll be talking about in a moment, their new Sora image creation is so good, you'll be able to create your ideal version of a real human being talking to you, taking their clothes off, doing all sorts of things. That can't really be far away. I'm not saying OpenAI is about to do it, but they're unleashing the technology so that someone will be doing it. Will it be Elon Musk? I don't know. But here's the real problem. Critics warn this fuels emotional addiction and social detachment in young men. Make no mistake about it. There's a real crisis among young men in America and other parts of the world, like Japan and South Korea. More and more young men are increasingly withdrawn. And this is adding fuel to the fire. More and more young men are tuning out. They're not doing as well in school. They're dropping out at higher rates. They are becoming opioid addicts at higher rates. They're literally killing themselves at higher rates than women. And so much of it is this complete withdrawal from society, partly because of video games, which Elon Musk claims to be so great at that as well and playing all night. A part of that is social media. A lot of it is porn, frankly, and maybe he is involved. I'm frankly surprised at this point Musk hasn't started a major porn site. Seems to want to have his finger in everything, in every pie. And now we're seeing young men getting increasingly emotionally attached to dashes and dots, to ones and O's, to technology. And it's kind of scary and a little bit odd. Now, the other weird thing here is Elon Musk is always talking about how imperative it is to increase the birth rate. We need more humans. We need more humans. He claims that his AI companion is going to increase the birth rate. Well, how? By what logic could that possibly happen? If you're at home, perhaps not completely dressed, talking to your AI chatbot, how are you going to increase the birth rate? These AI bots are still a long way away from actually being able to reproduce human beings. When you spend more and more time on your screen, you spend less and less time talking to real human beings. Especially for men, you reduce your ability to take risks, to start conversations, to deal with rejection. Some people don't want to talk to you. Some people don't want to go on a date with you. That's the real world. If you want to actually have kids, you're going to have to deal with that. If your idea is, I can never be rejected, let me stay in my safe little cocoon, you're not going to be increasing the population anywhere. And that is the bottom line there. I'm glad to see some state attorneys general are investigating this over exposure to minors. There does need to be some regulation. Should adults be able to access this? Yeah. But it doesn't mean it's a noble thing for Elon Musk or anyone else to spend their time, energy, efforts, billions of dollars trying to pollute the world with more garbage like this. It's absolutely a shame. And I think Elon Musk deserves a real reputational hit on this. I'm TJ Walker. This is Filtered. What do you think? You can post your comments. And I see I've missed a few comments today. I do look at your comments. And you can also leave comments on the video on demand. We're doing this live every day, as we do, typically mornings Eastern time. But it's also available on all podcasting platforms. And it's available on almost every social media platform. And we are live with our friends on TikTok today as well. Ben writes in, so Elon made digital girlfriends while the world's on fire. Got it. Okay. Can't tell, Hakeem says, can't tell if this is a business plan or a Black Mirror episode. It does seem like that. And Black Mirror, by the way, is one of my favorite shows because it does get the horrors of the modern world. If you've never seen Black Mirror, I urge you to check it out. Started off as a British show. It is available on Netflix. And the Black Mirror it's referencing is really, what does your cell phone look like when it's off? It's black and it's reflective and it's a mirror. I would highly recommend that show if you haven't seen it. We'll be back with more stories to come. Want a shortcut to powerful communication skills? Download the TJ Walker Success Library, 5 of my best-selling books for only $9.95. Go to tjwalker.com/books. Instant access, big impact. I've had entire YouTube channels wiped out overnight. So if you enjoy this show, don't lose track of me. The safest way is my newsletter, substack.com/@TJWalkerSuccess. Sign up for free and you'll get exclusive commentary, live session alerts, and first access to new tools. Again, that's substack.com. Just search for TJ Walker or go to substack.com/@TJ Walker Success, your direct line to everything I do. Welcome back. I'm TJ, and we're going to dive right into issue 3. Mark Sanchez faces felony charges after a parking lot altercation. Former NFL quarterback and Fox Sports analyst Mark Sanchez is now facing a felony battery charge after what authorities describe as a violent parking dispute in Indianapolis. According to ESPN and the Associated Press, prosecutors say the 38-year-old Sanchez, reportedly smelling of alcohol, confronted a 69-year-old truck driver early Saturday morning. The argument escalated into a fight that left both men injured. Sanchez with stab wounds and the driver with severe facial injuries. Indianapolis officials said the situation, quote, did not need to occur, and that the incident was captured on multiple surveillance cameras. The truck driver has since filed a lawsuit against Sanchez and Fox, believe it or not, alleging negligence and emotional distress. Sanchez remains hospitalized in stable condition as investigators continue to gather evidence. It's a sad reminder that wealth and fame don't guarantee wisdom or good judgment, especially when alcohol, ego, and late-night tempers collide. Okay, what's the real message here for Mark Sanchez? Take a page out of Entourage. Have someone else do the driving for you next time. Look, you're rich, you're famous, you're known by everyone. You don't need to be out driving at night after a couple of these. Get a driver, get an Uber. You can afford it. Okay, let's dig a little deeper here, because I'm trying to look at this from a crisis communication standpoint, and so we can all learn from that. Mark Sanchez has a lot to lose. And when you're famous and you're making tons and tons of money because of your fame, first as a football player and now as a Fox TV commentator, a sports commentator, you need to realize that you're in the spotlight all the time. And these days with recording with surveillance cameras, security cameras everywhere, everything you do is going to be seen again and again and again by a judge, by a jury, by the public, by TMZ. So you got to take this seriously. Now, look, I'm not holier than thou. Have I ever been out late at night? Yeah, not in a long time. Have I ever had a drink or two? Yeah. Have I ever gotten angry with someone taking a parking space? Yeah. But I'm not Mark Sanchez. I'm not instantly recognizable. I'm not famous. And with that fame, you get a lot of perks. You get a lot of money. There's a lot of social benefits from being that famous. There are some costs too. And the costs are you can't just get out of your car at 1 a.m. drunk and start throwing fists at a 69-year-old man when you are a 38-year-old former professional football player, 6'2", more than 200 pounds. It's just not going to seem like a fair fight. It's not going to seem like a legitimate fight to anyone. And Mark Sanchez should have enough wisdom and maturity to realize that. Sometimes you got to say, okay, I hate that person for taking my parking space, but it's just not worth it. And I'm going to drive on. Because here's the problem. Once something like this gets out, the local officials are in a real dilemma. They're like, if we don't press charges, people are going to say, we are playing favorites with famous rich celebrities. So they might vote us out of office if we're the sheriff who runs locally. And they're also saying, wow, this guy's not a local. No one's going to be offended by us filing charges against him. And we'll look tough on crime. We'll look like we're really holding everyone accountable, which they should want that. We're going to be standing up for our local people. They should be doing that. And they know they're going to get their 15 minutes of fame. They're going to get a lot of local and national, even international news coverage when they announce charges, especially felony charges, against someone this famous and well-known. So this is not a unique situation. As soon as I saw this, I immediately think of Justin Timberlake, who didn't get into a fist fight with anyone, but Justin Timberlake just a few years ago out in the Hamptons, late at night, too many drinks, driving in his fancy new, I believe it was a Porsche, BMW, and getting pulled over. It's happened to Lindsay Lohan, Kevin Hart, Reese Witherspoon, DUIs, reckless driving charges. Folks, if you're going to be a rich celebrity, good for you. Get an Uber. Get an Uber Black. Get something, hire your own driver. And what's wrong with having your entourage? Now, that show is not aged very well, but the basic concept of the star, Vinny, didn't do the driving, ever. He had his older brother or some flunky doing the driving. That's what you should do if you're a star, because there's no such thing as you going back to being a regular person. And if you get a DUI, nobody knows. Everybody's going to know. And there can be repercussions. Now, I'm not suggesting that because Justin Timberlake got a DUI, his career was over. Most people don't even remember it. But these things can escalate. You have too many drinks, you stop, a little bit of an altercation, words are exchanged, and before you know it, fist, someone has a knife, sometimes someone might have, it escalates, and it can be a career-defining and a career-ending moment. Now, I don't know how Fox is going to treat him. He's not Tom Brady. He's not a superstar at that level. And I can't imagine that Fox is very happy about this lawsuit, because the 69-year-old man, I don't mean to laugh at his plight, but it's a bit of a stretch. He's saying that, according to press reports in the Associated Press and ESPN, that he is suing Fox Sports because they should have essentially known that he was not a stable person and prone to something like this, that it was negligent of them letting him fly. But that's a bit of a stretch. But let's face it, Fox is a deep pockets, lots of money at Fox. So it does make sense from a legal strategy standpoint. It also gets a lot more attention. Look, if you're not famous, I don't want you out driving drunk or picking fights or getting in knife fights. I really don't. But especially if you're famous, you've got to be aware that all eyes will be on you. Everything is recorded. And if from any perspective you look like the bad guy, or Reese Witherspoon, the bad woman, that's what people are going to think of. That's what people are going to latch on to in the media. And it could cascade. Sometimes these things blow over. Nobody remembers it, but sometimes it ends careers. So think about what you do. I think of the late, great Pee Wee Herman. One incident in a movie theater, he thought no one could see. But unfortunately, that essentially ended a brilliant career. Yes, I know he did come back and do other things later, but it took a good bite out of his career, 20 years out of his career. So celebrities, you're going to have to spend more time at home in your own compound. You need some protection with an entourage. And my rule of thumb would be, if you're well known at all and you want even a half a glass of wine, just don't drive. Somebody sees you leaving a restaurant and you've had half a glass of wine, and then they run into you. You're completely blameless. Someone's going to report to the media, oh, I saw that guy drinking, and now he's going to crash. He was clearly drunk. It's going to spread. The rumor will spread. So get a driver. Really, you can afford it if you are a celebrity. More to come in just a moment. Hey, if you're enjoying this kind of take and want to hear more stories filtered through the lens of communication, make sure you're following the show, whether you're watching or listening. New episodes drop every single day. And if there's a little notification option where you are now, go ahead and turn it on. It helps you stay in the loop. Welcome back to Filtered. KO just writes in and says, man, Mark really fumbled this one in the parking lot. Yes, he did. Issue 4, Harvard students are zoning out, literally. At Harvard, many students are tuning out, not just figuratively. According to the New York Times, a faculty report found that students are skipping lectures, or worse, showing up only to stare at their phones while someone else records the class for them. Some even trade audio recordings from classmates instead of attending in person. Professors say the trend has created a quiet crisis on campus. Fewer students participate, few read the assignments, and classroom discussion has withered. Economics professor David Lapson says many pretend to have done the work while, quote, one student basically carries the day. Harvard's device-free sitting sections often sit empty. I didn't even know they had that, but apparently there's a marking saying no devices in this corner. They're often empty as glowing screens fill the rest of the lecture hall. The university is now experimenting with attendance checks, phone bans, good for them, and essay prompts about intellectual curiosity. It's an uncomfortable truth for America's top schools. When students stop engaging, even Harvard becomes just another content feed. Okay, what's the real message here? The professors at Harvard and every other university need to do their job. It's more work, but you need to start grading people, students, on their class participation. And guess what? If you don't show up or you're staring at a cell phone, you deserve an F. Let's dig a little deeper here. Now, I would not make it very long as a professor at Harvard or anyone else because I have very little patience for anyone that I'm talking to, speaking to, giving a training session to, staring at a cell phone. It's a big problem. And certainly if they don't even show up. Now, here's the problem. These universities, they like to say, oh, we're noble nonprofits. They are massive money intake machines. They like to scale. They like to be super profitable. So it's nice to have some star professors where you give them, sometimes $1 million or $2 million a year. They're the big name, and they fill up a lecture hall with 600 students. I know my introductory freshman econ class had probably 300 students in it because it was a well-known, famous professor. And that's a way to make money and keep costs down. The problem is, if everything then comes down to a multiple choice test, yeah, it's easy to grade, it's efficient. In the old days, your teaching assistants, your TAs could do it. Now I guess it's all plugged right into a computer, and the teachers didn't have to do anything but show up. The problem is no learning is taking place. The whole thing is becoming a bit of an AI generated, this AI to this, to this, to this. What's really happening here? Why not just charge $200,000 for a degree and be done with it and just say, here it is. Don't tell anyone you didn't come to class. So here's my advice to you. If you are a teacher, a trainer, or an instructor, because this is an issue I deal with all the time. If someone's coming to me for a media training or a public speaking training, a couple of things happen right away. I put everyone in a front row seat. Now, I understand every college campus classroom can't be restructured for every teacher. But if you ever have an opportunity in your corporate environment, in a civic group, and you're speaking to people, arrange the chairs so everyone has a front row seat. This makes it more embarrassing for people to stare at their cell phone. It makes it a lot easier for you to walk right up to them and ask them a question. That's what I do. If you have people in your audience staring at a cell phone, I hate to tell you, if you are a teacher, a trainer, or instructor, a speaker, it means you're not doing your job. You need to manage the crowd. You need to manage the audience, and it can be done. Now, I wouldn't go so far as there was a video on YouTube more than 10 years ago. It turns out it was a put on, but there was a college professor lecturing in front of a class, and you saw the students, and you could kind of see one kid on his cell phone. The professor walks up, grabs the cell phone out of the kid's hand, throws it against the wall. It smashes into a million pieces. And the professor just keeps on going like nothing happened. Now, I've later found out that that was a put on. It was an act, but it made a great point. I love that video. Other people are offended by it. I'm not telling you to destroy other people's personal property. If you're a teacher, although it is tempting, I can relate to it if it does feel like some of you, but I'm not suggesting you do that. But if you're the teacher, you can make rules. If I were a teacher at a university, I would say, okay, I'm going to have a rule. A teaching assistant will be out front, and you will put your phone in a basket and you'll get it at the end of class. If I see you on a cell phone, then automatic, you lose 1 grade. You get 100 on the next 10 tests, best you can get is a B. That would be my rule. The next thing I would do is actually mark who is participating. You want to get 100 on the test because your friend Joey made a secret audio recording and you listened to the lecture and you did okay on the test. Okay, but if you didn't show up in class and you didn't participate, you're never going to get higher than a C. That's how I would run my classroom. Now you say, well, TJ, that wouldn't work at our school. Our students are our customers. Okay, if they're just the customers, then just give everyone an A and say, look, little Timmy, little Johnny, little Sally, you're wonderful. Here's just an audio of all my lectures. If you want to listen to it, fine. If you don't, that's okay. Here's an A. Thank you for the check. Thank you for the tuition check. Look, there are some garbage colleges, some really cheap proprietary colleges, some diploma mills that have always done this. But isn't Harvard supposed to be special? Isn't it supposed to be different? Isn't it supposed to attract the greatest minds who want to learn? Look, I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I love online learning. That's how I make my livelihood. I have 12 million online student enrollments. So I have no problem with someone listening to an audio or watching a video to learn something. The difference is when someone buys one of my classes, they typically aren't paying more than 20 bucks. If you're going to Harvard for 4 years, you're going to spend, unless you're on full scholarship, hundreds of thousands of dollars. There should be a difference between a $20 experience and a $200,000 experience. And Harvard needs to address this. And rather than putting so much pressure on professors to get published in obscure research journals read by 2 people, maybe they should put more pressure on professors. And I don't mean to single out Harvard, but that's what got the attention in the news today. They should put more pressure on teachers to actually know the names of their students, to take attendance, and to mark who is giving discussion, who's asking real questions in class, who's answering questions, and who isn't. Now, there's another phenomenon going on, and this is outlined in the New York Times today, where kids are taking sometimes 2, sometimes 3 classes all at the same time. So it's not even theoretically possible for them to go to the class. It's like, oh, I want this class. I want to get this on my resume. I want to get this on my transcript. I got to sign this up. I know, Johnny has the audio lectures from last semester. I'll just listen to that and cram for the test. No, there's got to be a pretty easy way. You don't even need AI for this. You need a basic computer program that would prohibit a student from taking 2 classes overlapping at the same time. This is a real opening for other universities, especially smaller universities, especially ones that don't show up in the USA, our US News and World Report top 10 surveys, and it just came out again, and say, look, we have real teachers with real classrooms where you're expected to show up and be present. I think schools that do that would really do well in the competition for students who really want to learn. I don't know why you want to just sit in your dorm room and listen to an audio all night long before the test. What do you do the whole rest? Why did you even bother going to college? It's a huge, huge problem. Hakeem writes, if Harvard kids can't focus, what hope is there for the rest of us? It's a good point. I guess part of the issue is they are focusing, but not on their studies. They're not focusing on their academics. They're focusing on, presumably, TikTok and sexy men and women jumping around on Instagram and all this other stuff, and just giving partial attention to their studies. And ultimately, they're only shortchanging themselves, but society does lose as well. We've got lots more to come today on Filtered with TJ Walker. I want to say a special hello to my friends on my personal Facebook page. I typically broadcast this on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, X, and a number of other platforms, but I don't typically put this on my personal page. So apologies to friends normally used to seeing things just about vacations and entertainment and family. Doing a little experiment here. We'll try it out for a month. If it doesn't irritate too many people, I would like my friends to know what I'm up to as well. So thank you so much for joining me. If you are one of my friends watching from my personal Facebook page, we have lots more to come, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. Want to advertise here? You better be legit. No crypto, no junk food, no supplements. Go to tjwalker.com/advertise. Most people can't afford a full-time coach. And even if you could, good luck finding one who's available when you need them. That's why I created the TJ Walker AI clone. It's built on my 40-plus years of real-world coaching and training. You get my exact advice, style, and frameworks instantly. Ask it how to handle a tough question. Get feedback on your elevator pitch. Rehearse your next big talk. This is the next generation of communication coaching. It's smarter than an app, more personal than a course, and always ready. Start using it today at tjwalker.ai. You'll wonder how you ever did without it. Welcome back to Filtered. OpenAI bets big on AMD, and everyone else bets on OpenAI. The AI arms race just took another massive turn. Reuters reports that OpenAI will buy hundreds of thousands of AMD chips, roughly the computing power of 6 nuclear reactors, as part of a new equity for silicon deal. In return, OpenAI gets the option to acquire up to 10% of AMD. The news sent AMD stock soaring more than 35% in pre-market trading. The deal cements OpenAI's position as the clear frontrunner in artificial intelligence, and investors are treating it that way. Tech giants like Microsoft, Nvidia, and SoftBank have already poured billions into OpenAI's ecosystem, while smaller players scramble to catch up. But such dominance brings new questions. With OpenAI's compute capacity now dwarfing most rivals, regulators are watching for signs of monopoly power in what could soon be the most valuable industry on Earth. In short, everybody is betting on OpenAI, and if history is any guide, the frontrunner often ends up writing the rules for everybody else. Okay, what's the real message here? OpenAI is a train that's getting faster and more powerful every day as more and more other big tech companies are saying, this train is leaving the station, let's hop on, let's invest in them, let's give them money, let's give them a part of our business. It's because they are afraid that in the new world of AI, there's going to be one winner, everyone else is going to be a loser. That may be a smart business decision for these companies trying to get a piece of it, but it's not necessarily good for consumers. If the last 25 years has taught us nothing else, it's when one company is too dominant, problems emerge. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. And full disclosure, I use OpenAI. OpenAI helped create the graphic you're looking at right now. Helps me refine and rewrite some of the scripts every day. I do their inexpensive $20 a month version. So I don't want to be a hypocrite here and say, how dare anyone use OpenAI? I use it every day. I do find I don't even know why I started using that as opposed to any of that, but I did. It certainly got the most attention early, and I glommed onto it, I guess. But now we face a problem where the company is so big. It's now given a valuation of $500 billion. It's not a public company. It's the most valuable private company in the U.S. And in some ways, other than a few royalty funds, it is the most highly valued private company in the world. So with that much wealth comes tremendous power. And at some point, maybe not with the current administration, but with other administrations, if you're $500 billion, maybe $1 trillion in a few years, you start owning the politicians. You have so much money, you can buy them all off. Regulatory issues go away or fade away quite often. Antitrust issues, certainly in the current environment, disappear. And it leads to tremendous consolidation. Small players are snuffed out. innovation can be snuffed out. Here's the big problem with AI that's simply different from Google snuffing out competition or Facebook snuffing out competition. The problem with AI is they could be the first one to truly get general artificial intelligence, a level of artificial intelligence so smart it's truly surpassed humans' ability. And the big fear, of course, is when you look at the history of all animals on planet Earth, there's never been a case when the smarter animal doesn't rule over the dumber animal. So many people, not just conspiracy theorists and dystopians, many people who are serious AI experts are worried about the fact that once a general artificial intelligence is created, it is going to be the master of human beings. Maybe its mastery is benign. Maybe it's a benign dictatorship. But would we as humans knowingly hand over our autonomy, our power, our own sovereignty as a species to something else? Because make no mistake about it, artificial intelligence is something else. It's not human. So that's a part of the real concern here about OpenAI, getting more and more companies wanting a piece of it. And when you own a piece of a company, you're less likely to come up with competing ideas. Some of the landscape now that's very fertile in the AI space is for companies trying to really take safety seriously. Because OpenAI is kind of like, we used to talk about safety. Safety's nice, but you know what else is nice? Raising another $250 billion. That seems to be the attitude of Sam Altman and the leadership at OpenAI today is safety's a nice thing to have, but raising more money and getting richer and building our war chest is even more, and growth is more important. And maybe it all works out. Maybe 500 years from now, humans are all incredibly happy and writing poetry and doing relaxing hobbies all day long, and everyone's happy, and AI is doing all the manual work, all the other work, and it all works out. Maybe, but maybe not. And that's why I do think we need more AI companies. We need competition for OpenAI. Now, there is a lot of competition right now. But as many tech analysts predict, we're going to see what happened in the internet era and in the railroad era in Britain and in the automobile era 100 years ago. New technology happens. Everyone's excited about it. Investors all fall in. And then after 10 years or so, it is clear, okay, 98% of these companies are going to fail. Too many railroads were built, they failed. Too many car companies were built, they failed. Too many internet startups, pet.com failed. And you're left with 3, sometimes, in the case of automobile manufacturers in the United States for a long time. Sometimes you're left with 1, like in the case of Google. If we only have one open AI company, or see, I'm conflating AI with OpenAI. That's essentially a win for them. That's what they want. If we only have one AI company, is OpenAI the one we trust the most? I don't hate the company. Again, I use it every day, but I don't have anything to really give me confidence that they should be the ones potentially controlling the entire future of humanity. I know that sounds heavy for a Tuesday morning, but I'm not the only one who feels like the stakes are that high. What do you think? You can post your comments right here. We are live. If you're listening to this on demand on a podcast service, you can post comments there. If you're watching this on TikTok, YouTube, any other social media platform, and it's the on-demand video, post your comments. I typically get to see all of them at some point, try to respond to as many as I can. If you're listening on a podcast platform and you don't see a place to leave a comment, you can always go to my YouTube channel. It's TJ Walker Success. Go to the post tab and you can post your comment there. Okay, let's now switch over to the grab bag section of the show. We typically cover 5 big issues in depth where I try to give you a sense of what's most important about the story, but then go behind the story to give you some communication and personal development tips to help you and improve you. My pledge to you in this show is spend some time with me each day. You'll learn a little more about what's going on in the world, but you'll also learn more for yourself, how to improve your own communication and personal development skills to be more successful in all aspects of life, your career and your personal life. More big news in the last 24 hours. Bari Weiss lands CBS News. Free press sold to Paramount. CBS named Bari Weiss editor-in-chief after Paramount agreed to acquire her startup, the Free Press, for about $150 million. This was a little newsletter just 3-4 years ago. Supporters call it a bold move to modernize CBS. Critics see a polarizing figure with limited newsroom experience and no broadcast TV experience. So what's the bottom line here? I think this is, on the one hand, you can say it's very positive for the media. We live in a world where journalists are constantly talking about losing their jobs, getting fired, everything going out of business. And here is a woman with entrepreneurial spunk. She had the bravery of quitting her job at the New York Times, went out and started on her own, started a Substack, started a little newsletter, started a podcast, and it grew and grew and grew. She raised money. And now she had, I wouldn't say a huge empire, but she was making $15 million a year, 1.5 million readers, which is pretty substantial. And now she got bought by CBS or Paramount, the parent of CBS News. And she's given the reins, the keys to the kingdom of one of the journalistic broadcast jewels of the world. It does boggle the mind, her ascent so quickly in 4 years. What else is significant here? In part, here's what a lot of people worry about, whether they are centrist, right of center, or left of center, is there's other factors in play here. Paramount is owned by the Ellison family. Larry Ellison has very right-wing Republican views, big Trump fan, always trying to help Trump, always looking for more regulatory approval for mergers, always seems to want to help out Trump. Nothing unusual about that. Rupert Murdoch does that. A lot of media bigwigs do. But the number of media properties they are just gobbling up is massive. And the chain, it's one thing to get a small little newsletter or a podcast network. But this is CBS News. This is, in some respects, the most respected, historically anyway, broadcast news source for Americans. This was the home of Walter Cronkite. This was the home of Dan Rather. When CBS News said something, instantly half the world or half the country knew it. Most of them believed it. So now they're putting at the helm of this journalistic enterprise someone who seems to be just grinding a political axe. Now, Bari Weiss calls herself a centrist. She says she's on both sides of a lot of issues. She's not what you would call an archetypal conservative. She is a lesbian. She has a wife. She doesn't fit the profile of someone you think, well, that is Ralph Reed on steroids. But when you look at her editorial output, virtually everything is punching left. It's always talking about how awful and evil these liberal professors are, these woke progressives are. She's only punching one way. And it's not that she doesn't have a point from time to time. She does have a point from time to time. But is that objective news? That's someone you have on as a guest to counterweight things from time to time. The other thing she's most known for is no matter what extremist right-wing position the most right-wing extremist leader of Israel calls for, she's like, absolutely, that's great. And anything anyone else wants to point out as atrocity or killings of children or genocide, nope, nothing to look at here. I mean, we live in a time when people are more worried than ever about bias in the media. And her number one issue seems to be, no, we want the media to be more biased. We want to say in the Middle East, one side and one extreme right-wing faction of one side is always right. And 95% of the rest of the world public opinion by reasonable journalists, intellectuals, all of those people are completely discredited. All of their concerns are completely discredited because you can only back and support what one right-wing leader does all the time. Now, we don't even have that in America. I mean, even Ted Cruz, who says he's the number one staunch supporter of Donald Trump in the U.S. Senate, occasionally criticizes him. He criticizes him when he's wrong. He criticizes him for going after Jimmy Kimmel. He criticizes him for tariffs occasionally. So it's widely considered a part of democratic norms, certainly journalistic norms, is you don't automatically say this one team member is always right. And that, as far as I can tell, is the one consistent thing in her journalistic career, is saying I'm only for one side and one teeny tiny extremist side in an ongoing debate where many people differ, shall we say. So I guess congratulations are in order to Bari Weiss. I mean, this is one of the all-time coups of journalism. This kind of reminds some people of how Arianna Huffington went from an idea at a coffee table, starting the Huffington Post, and then sold it to AOL a number of years later for, I believe, $350 million. The price tag isn't quite as the issue as much as it is the power, the control of being the editor-in-chief of broadcast news, of everything on CBS. I mean, this includes 60 Minutes. This includes so many crown jewels of journalism, their morning show, their Sunday morning show. It's really incredibly impressive. The power she's got. Arianna Huffington, no one ever gave her the position of being editor-in-chief for NBC News, for example. Those of you watching on the feed, what I'm doing is I am attempting to not sign out of my live feed with TikTok. TikTok does not let us, I'm going to have to just take it off here. TikTok does not let us do the same simulcast feed. So what I do have to do here is do a separate feed on my phone for my good friends on TikTok. And we have them back. I hope I'll have to frame it better in just a moment, but we are almost done with the show. So what's the real message here for you? There's a number of troubling messages here. Let me focus on something that's really the most positive, that's relevant to you if you are young, ambitious, and successful, or old, ambitious, and desire to be successful. And that is, it's not too late to create your own media business, your own media empire. Bari Weiss, she just left the New York Times. She was not happy there. Fine, nothing wrong with that. But she didn't just sit around and pout. She didn't just write a book and kind of semi-retire. She is aggressive. She is everywhere. She goes on Bill Maher. She goes on talk shows everywhere. She started podcasts. She started newsletters. She used her leadership to attract like-minded people. And she went out and hustled. Because I got to tell you, it's not easy getting 1.5 million people to subscribe to your Substack newsletter. Not easy at all. People try every day. I'm trying every day. And I have, believe it or not, fewer than 1.5 million subscribers. It's not easy to get to $15 million in revenue for a company. It's not easy to raise investment. She did it all. Now, you don't necessarily have to become the editor of the CBS Evening News or any part of CBS. You don't have to go out and raise money. But I do think what Bari Weiss shows is if you have some unique vision of the world, some unique lane, and you are clear and you are articulate and you are passionate and you're willing to be creative and you're willing to take setbacks. Okay, my career didn't advance exactly the way I wanted the New York Times. I'm just going to just pout and go home. I'm going to use new media to do what I want. Starting a newsletter, starting a podcast. Yes, a book. Yes, going on a guest in other places. starting memberships, build, and then meet with people who want to do business with you. And you never know how high up you'll end up. She's ended up very, very high. So congratulations to her. I don't think it's good for the American media ecosystem. I think she makes the news more biased, not less. I'm not saying she's always wrong. Are there occasions of left-wing wokeness where excesses happen? Sure. But in a time when our country is besieged by right-wing authoritarianism trying to take over, where someone is trying to essentially shred the United States Constitution and install a dictatorship, to me, it's like worrying about global warming during the Ice Age. It's not really relevant right now. Okay, moving on to other issues. Pentagon eases new press rules after outcry. Following a backlash from news outlets, the Pentagon relaxed new restrictions that once required, get this, required prior approval for publishing. Journalists can now report freely from within the building without clearance. So it was really something Orwellian. It's something that democracies don't do. It's something the United States has not done before. But Pete Hegseth instituted a new rule where if you want to report on the Defense Department, or the War Department, as he likes to call it, then you have to get approval from our Public Affairs Office in advance. Folks, that's what they do in China, or you end up disappeared. That's what they do in North Korea. That's what they do in Russia, unless you want to take an accidental tumble off of a balcony. And that's what they've been doing here in the United States for, I don't know if it's been weeks or months, with so many attacks on liberties and so many American citizens being attacked by our own military. It's hard to keep track of all the extreme shredding of constitutional rights, but this has been one. Thankfully, it's changed. At some point, people realize this is too much, even for this administration. You cannot tell reporters they have to get approval in advance, because then they're not reporters. Then they become public relations officials. They become information specialists. They become propaganda ministers. And those are perfectly fine professions. I've been a director of communications before for government officials, federal, state. Nothing wrong with that profession, but it's not journalism. It's not the free press. It's not the lifeblood of democracy. So I'm glad to see some change there. Final issue, I want to put a brief spotlight on Stephen Miller and his rhetoric. According to Stephen Miller, Democrats are extremists, essentially terrorists. According to The Atlantic, Trump aide Stephen Miller is escalating his rhetoric, labeling Democrats as violent extremists. He recently posted, "There is a large and growing movement of left-wing terrorism in this country. The only remedy is to use legitimate state power to dismantle terrorism and terror networks." He also declared the Democrat Party is not a political party. It is a domestic extremist organization. So this is what tyrants do. This is what political extremists do. What political extremists, far left or far right, do this. What they say is, if you criticize me, if you give legitimate criticism of me, it's not legitimate. There is no such thing as legitimate criticism of the king or dear leader. Therefore, if you dare criticize me, you're an extremist and you're a part of an extremist organization. And therefore, you're terrorist. So if you're a terrorist, I don't need to debate you in the public square with ideas and facts and rebuttals. I just need to get rid of you, use the full force of government. Now, I've been saying this for months now. I'll say it again. This will offend some of you. I'll make a prediction. I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. But I think Stephen Miller, who by most accounts is sort of the intellectual leader of the current administration, he's laying the groundwork We're also seeing it every day with raids in cities where U.S. soldiers are knocking the skulls of American citizens in democratic cities, or to use the popular code word slur of right-wing media, the Democrat cities. They're cracking skulls, they're intimidating, and here's my prediction, I'll say it again. We are perhaps 6 months away from this administration officially declaring the Democratic Party a terrorist organization, therefore an illegal organization. It will become illegal to be a Democrat in America. Members who take leadership positions of the Democratic Party will be imprisoned, detained, vanished. Then we'll be happy to have an election in 2026. We'll see how fairly that adds up. It won't be any different than all the wonderful free elections they have in Russia. That is my prediction. Stephen Miller, widely considered to be extraordinarily influential by people all across the spectrum, all observers of Washington, is being very clear. I mean, let's give him credit for honesty. He's not doing this in secret. He's publicly telling people, if you have any criticism of this administration, you're automatically an extremist. And we have a problem with terrorism, extreme terrorism in our country. There's no such thing as a differing opinion or an honest critique or an honest assessment of the facts. If you disagree with Trump, you're automatically a part of the far left Democrats Party. No such thing as a centrist or a moderate or progressive. Everything now is far left Democratic Party, as we are told. And if in fact they are far left and they are extremist and they're a part of a terror network, then logically, using Miller's logic, it makes sense to eliminate them. I hope I'm wrong. But Trump is smart. He's smart enough to realize that he's unlikely to keep control of the Congress if we simply have fair, honest elections. If the Democratic Party is treated like the Republican Party, like it always has been, like an honest player or a legitimate player in our American system of government, and they're allowed to run candidates, the Republicans are not going to control the House of Representatives. That's not my opinion. That's pretty much everyone's opinion. And to show you I'm being fair, it also seems pretty clear the Republicans are going to keep control of the U.S. Senate. But Trump and his minions realize they can't simply keep doing what they're doing and have control of the House. And once that happens, that puts a monkey wrench into the machinery and everything stops. Then the investigations start. Then the impeachment proceedings start. So there's got to be a way to short circuit that. I believe Miller is laying the groundwork. Simply just tell people every single day, go an inch further, hey, the Democrats are extreme. Hey, the Democrats are far left. Hey, the Democrats are an extremist organization. Hey, we have a problem with left-wing terrorism in America. Hey, the Democrats are really a left-wing terrorist organization. Let's make it illegal. Let's stomp it out. All the dots are connecting. And that's why I think it is only a matter of time before we see this administration attempt to actually, if they don't de jure make the Democratic Party illegal, it will be de facto. You'll see so many Democratic Party leaders either imprisoned, jailed, detained, disappeared, that will essentially make it impossible for the Democratic Party to survive. So yes, if you are a libertarian candidate wanting to run from another party, okay, you'll be allowed to run, get your 1-2%. But for anyone representing the 70% of the center and the center left in this country, you are going to be shut out of the process. I'm TJ Walker. I'm not shutting you out of the process. You can disagree with me. You can vehemently disagree with me. That's okay. Post your comments right here if you're watching this live, if you're watching it on demand, on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, any place else. I will read your comments and I try to respond. Thanks so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Remember, please like the channel you're on, leave comments, and leave reviews. Thanks.